and today we're sitting down with my very own brother, Dan Abbate, and he's going to give you a little rundown on what projects he's working on right now, and then we'll get into some background. He's got an awesome story for you new entrepreneurs, and I think you're going to find it really helpful. So go ahead, Dan, introduce yourself.
Hey, everybody. As Emily said, I am Dan Abbate. My company is 81C, and we look for acquisition opportunities across a variety of industries that we can acquire a company and then scale it up through additional bolt-on acquisitions or other various improvement methods that we look at before the acquisition to make sure that we can grow it and make it better as a condition of us acquiring it in the first place. And so we do that across a bunch of different industries, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so are you strictly buying these out, or do some of these owners, CEOs, all those guys, do they all stay on, or is it strictly a buyout?
That's a good question. So it's an option for people to stay on, but frankly we find that it's a kind of a big mental leap for people to go from being an independent where they are not accountable to anyone, the good and bad of that, to then come in under an umbrella. And the same thing happens with, when a private equity firm or VC gets involved with companies. That's often an issue. So we do like to offer that to people that are the right culture fits for us, but we haven't had much success in that scenario because the conversation usually devolves rather quickly to like, oh, well, now I have to report to you, and then that's kind of the end of it. So what we end up doing is acquiring the company 100%, usually from someone who's looking to exit, many times because they've been doing it for 20 or 30 years and they're looking for a time to go off and do something else. And then we pair that company with a new entrepreneur that is looking for something to do. And so we have a whole recruiting process that we do for the entrepreneurs without businesses that we want to put into a business. And so that's usually how it will go down.
Wow, okay. So you're actually not only giving people that are ready to head out of their businesses an opportunity to do that, but you're also giving young entrepreneurs a chance to jump in kind of without having to do this whole startup process.
Yes, totally. That's how it works. And then for the entrepreneurs that we put in, that become the CEO, we have a whole, aside from the recruiting part of it, operationally we have a whole kind of training that we go through, and then to train them on our systems. The assumption is they have some experience and skills, of course, to begin with, so otherwise they wouldn't make it past our recruiting process. But we want to make sure everybody's speaking our language, and so that they have to be kind of trained and worked into our whole operations system and way of operating, because they're reporting up to the corporate level, basically directly to our COO. So we want to make sure that they're doing that in the standard way.
Right. Sure, that makes sense. Well, I wish that something like that was around when you and I were starting, huh?
Right. It would make it a lot easier.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool what you're doing currently. So why don't you give everybody a little bit of background? Have you always considered yourself entrepreneurial? Have you always just gone that route? What's been your background? Where did you start?
So I've always been an entrepreneur. I haven't really had like a real job in the traditional sense. So I grew up in our dad's manufacturing company, and so I started working there. I think I was probably about 14 or 15. So I kind of got the feel for kind of what that was all about from kind of a manufacturing perspective. And then, so because it's manufacturing, it's obviously very process driven, so I picked up a lot of, process experience. And then also, our dad was consolidating companies, acquiring smaller companies and then rolling them into his. And so I kind of got that experience. And then in the kind of late 90s, I had an internet company, which basically built traffic and sold it to bigger companies. And then I eventually, sold that to somebody else. And then I was just, busy with other acquisition opportunities and consolidation sort of mindset, but from a technology perspective. So I was doing more like business process automation in the companies that I would acquire, and I'd also put myself in as CEO. And so with myself in charge like that, that worked out fine, but I was limited in how many I could do at a time, obviously, because I was in charge of that company. And so just that's why 81C, the way that it is, doesn't put me in charge. It really has a scalable kind of management structure for each individual company. And that's kind of why I went down that path, because I wanted to be able to do what I was doing, because that worked. I just needed to do it at more scale.
Right, and that's, interestingly enough, we hear a lot from young entrepreneurs that we're working with in WDH that they don't quite understand that that's really the difference between an entrepreneur and a sole proprietor. A sole proprietor is somebody that is running their business maybe quite successfully, but they're not able to step away from it. So that's really interesting that you're making that distinction from your own experience.
Yeah, I think that's for sure. And I think there's different variations even of what you just said there, because there's entrepreneurs who realize that and get to the point. I guess that's the question, is how long and how far can you step away, right? So if you're totally sole proprietor, you can't step away at all. If you're kind of like most entrepreneurs, you probably can take a vacation, like a week or 2 weeks, maybe, if you get to that point. But then probably during that 2 weeks, it still functions operationally, but probably all growth activity stops.
Right.
But then, so the real distinction of like a certain scale of entrepreneur, if you want to call it that, is somebody who can, really make it, just take it out, like have the option to like, okay, well, I did all my accountability stuff for all of my team and my management team, and then I know they're going to do everything they're supposed to do. I have a team that's part of the growth trajectory of the business, so that if I stop doing the growth, it still will grow without me. And like that's all just a process, and that's what allows that entrepreneur to say, well, I want to do something else for 6 weeks or 6 months or whatever it is. Like as long as they're following through on keeping everyone else accountable to what they're supposed to be doing, then their time is very flexible. And that's really the ultimate goal, because that not only makes the goal there isn't necessarily like, oh great, well then they can go off and sit around and do nothing for 6 months. The goal there is that they have a team working at scale for them, which makes the business healthier. Like that's really what the byproduct is, that like, oh great, now we have the flexibility of their time. Right. But the value of it is the fact that they can that the business is built to optimal form, essentially.
Right. And that drive has to, and that process has to be there from the beginning, correct? I mean, that's how I think of it. Do you think of it that way as well?
Yeah, I think that I think it can be put in. It doesn't have to be like totally from the beginning. But I think the entrepreneur, the person whose job it would be to make that distinction, to come up with that idea, to do that, and then we'll actually do it. That comes from that person individually. So if that person is of the mind to always show up to the company at 7 o'clock and then leave at 5 o'clock, and then that's what they do, and they always are kind of doing the same operational things and never kind of pulling away from that, or they can't give up control. Sometimes people run into that problem where they can't give up control enough to let other people do any good for them. Then that's where they get stuck. So if they can make, it's all mental leap essentially. It really has more to do with the person than it does any outside circumstance.
Right. So moving along here into closer to where you are currently, what would you say was the biggest lessons that you've learned over your years, and maybe the most helpful, I hate to use the word, the most helpful failures?
So the biggest lesson that I learned is kind of related to what we were just saying. I had a friend down here in Florida who's another entrepreneur who's very older guy, more successful, has been around for a long time, he's been very successful. So he's on the backside of his career because he's much older. But anyway, so he said to me one time that the highest, or rather the worst part of a business is the part that the entrepreneur is good at. The worst part of the business is the part that the entrepreneur is good at. And what he meant by that is that usually people start their business around some sort of skill that they have, whatever it is, if it's actually producing the product or if it's sales or whatever. So like in my case, it's kind of like operational process stuff. And so what that means is that if you're good at that, and that's what got you to where you know, from start to where you're at now, then you're probably not looking to replace you. And so the highest skill level that will ever be applied to that particular part of the business is your own skill level, because you're not going to think to replace yourself because, well, I'm good at this. And that's true, you are good at that. The issue is, though, is that there's probably lots of people that are way better at it than you are, even though you're good at it. And so that was like, if you extrapolate from that thought process, it really kind of gives you a definition of what the leader is supposed to be doing, because you could make the argument that any time the leader steps into a role to do anything, there's probably somebody better. So although the leader might have to step into particular roles at different times as the company grows, that person ideally would be looking to grow. If they're looking to grow the business and grow themselves, then they really need to be looking to always step out of the position they're in and keep elevating themselves outside of whatever role they're playing at that moment. Because again, they might be good at it and maybe only move it to the next level, but there'll always be somebody better. And then their job is to just keep looking for that always better person.
Sure. No, that makes sense. That's really interesting. I've never really heard it put that way. That makes perfect sense. You know, the concept of the leader's job is essentially to empower their teams, and that's the only job.
Right.
It's not anything more than that. Yeah, that's really interesting. So before we head off here, what would you say is the best advice you can give someone that's in that scaling process? Maybe they've got a small business that's working well and they want to move into that next, like you said, mindset. What would you say is the best thing for them?
Well, I know I have a very good answer for that because I've seen it over and over again. So you have to not be afraid to hire the people that you need to hire before you need them, or like before you can afford them, I guess is kind of a good way to say it. Now that's where the risk part of it comes in, and that's where you really got to try to find the right people right away, and then if they're not the right people, cut them loose fast so you don't waste a lot of money on them. But a lot of times what people do is as they're trying to grow, they're taking an income out, and then so any money that they pay someone else comes directly out of their pocket. And so then they say, well, I'll grow a little more. So I'm making $100,000 now, and I want to keep making $100,000. So I got to raise the value of the business to the profit of the business from 100 to 160,000, so I can pay this new guy, the 60,000, and then I'll hire that guy. So what happens in that scenario is either they never hire the guy at all, because then when they hit the 160, now they're living off the 160 instead of the 100, and so they never have the money. Or two, they never get to the 160 because they don't have the resources to be able to do that from just like an operational and get things done perspective, because they need that person. Right. So they need to figure out how to come up with the money to bring in the next person, whoever that person is that needs to help move something forward, and not wait until it's like quote unquote like the perfect situation. Because in our own experience, we hired our COO a couple of years ago, and we actually hired her. We thought we were hiring her maybe 6 months earlier than we needed her. And then in reality, once she came in, we saw that we really needed her right then. So we were like, as a student, like even as she was coming on board, we were like, oh, okay, like we were starting to feel we were in kind of a growth mode. So it was just that also accelerated it. But in general, we saw the added value that she, in that same 6 months, we thought, well, that we'll just organically grow to meet her. She made her value known immediately. Wow. So, yeah.
That's super. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure that this will be incredibly helpful for all of our young entrepreneurs listening. And yeah, thank you so much. Have a good day. Do you have any other last-minute thoughts?
No, I was happy to have this conversation. Hopefully we can have more.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Awesome.
And today we're sitting down with my very own brother, Dan.